Hello, welcome back to Math Time with Professor Prime, and I am your host as always, Professor Prime. And today we're going to talk about the importance of gaming. One of my favorite things. Alright, so let's get right into it. Gaming has been around for quite some time. And there are a lot of things that you can get out of gaming, and the more it's been around, the more it has impacted this world and people. When I think about gaming, I think about some of the skills that you are either picking up or refining. I think about how you are problem solving, how you're goal setting, right? You're managing your goals along with the goals of the game. You're facing challenges. You're using your analytical skills. You're developing them as well. And you're doing the same for your problem solving skills. And whether you realize it or not, in a lot of cases, you're building up your sense of empathy. And to me, that's really cool because there are so many ways to learn empathy in this world, and I feel like when you're viewing those things, video games provide a very unique way to do that, right? Because you're playing as a character. You are literally in their shoes as you are playing through the game. You're interacting with different characters in these games that you're playing. And you're viewing different perspectives. And sometimes you can be playing a game where you're playing the main character, but there may be some missions where you play another. And so you get to have another perspective within that game, and you get to see things through some other characters' lens. And I think that's all pretty cool. And you can get so invested in a video game, and there's so much that you can get out of video games emotionally, but that's not all, right? Because when you're viewing these characters, you're playing as these characters, and you're watching a story unfold, and at the same time, you are actively contributing to it unfold, it shapes you in some ways. You also get to see how stories can be approached, because you could be playing a game and things are handled in a linear fashion, right? And you're still getting something great out of that experience. Things can also be handled in a non-linear fashion, and the same applies. And when you're dealing with a story that's unfolding in a linear way and a story that's unfolding in a non-linear way, you are still learning something about storytelling. And I feel like that's amazing. And chances are, if you're into gaming, you're probably gonna be into the behind the scenes, right? And there's so much to be said about that. And I think it's cool. And one of the biggest things with gaming that I find fascinating, and I hope you do too, is that there's a lot of math involved in it. There's a lot of math when you're playing a game, and there's a lot of math behind the scenes. And I want to talk about both of those things. I talk about math all the time, and on this channel, one of my biggest offshoots of my Math in the World series is actually my Math and Gaming series. It's a great way to combine my passions and get to share that with you all, to explore things, right? Because with math, there are some skills that you'll be building up directly that you're used to, but looking at things in a more nuanced way happens as well. And I think that's pretty cool. So when I think about math, I think about how let's start with you as the player, right? In a lot of games, you have a health bar or some way to indicate health, and maybe it's a numerical value or maybe it's a visual representation of your health. Either way, it conveys how much you have left, and you have a good sense of how much damage you're outputting. And if it's not the kind of game where it's like an action and adventure game or a fighting game where those things are part of it, well, you might be dealing with a racing game where you have to run a certain amount of laps, you're going a certain amount of speed. There's math in all of that. And the other thing is with puzzle games, right? You're putting everything together with your problem solving skills, and it builds on things I feel like in a pretty direct way. But no matter how you cut it, you're doing a lot of math. And let's not forget our good old friends RPGs, especially JRPGs. Math is all over the place with those things. And I think that's pretty cool because every game's gonna be different. Every game's gonna have its own battle system and all that good stuff. But there's a lot of things at the cores of RPGs and JRPGs specifically, and a lot of RPG elements have gotten funneled into a lot of different games over time. And I mean, I get why. They're pretty cool. So when you're playing an RPG and you're going through, right? There's so much that you're juggling. And some of the things that I'm going to mention can apply to other games, but I just wanted to focus on RPGs for a minute. Like, so you have your stats, and in different games there's different stats, but the idea is like that's some math right there for you, and you're getting a good sense of how you grow over time, right? You're building up experience, you're growing levels, you're getting stronger, you're getting faster, you're able to dish out more damage while taking less damage, and you might be able to evade more. And then there's just other mechanics in different games, but the whole point is there's a lot of math behind all that, right? And then there's the idea of resource management, right? Because you can only carry a certain number of items in a lot of games, right? And you got to be careful because you look, well, hey, I have this item and I have this amount of this item. What do I want to do? Do I want to sell this item? Do I want to discard it? Do I want to save it later? Is this important? You got to make those decisions. And in a lot of cases with RPGs, you get to customize your characters, like how you want them to function. And I think that's pretty cool. And you get these sort of elements in a lot of other games throughout time. And I think that's awesome because you really are building up your math skills whether or not you're realizing it. Because here's the thing, right? Even if you're not writing down the math, it doesn't mean you're not doing it. And I think that's really cool. And not only that, but there's a lot of math involved in the behind the scenes with gaming. And like I mentioned earlier in this video, that if you're into gaming, chances are at some point in your life you're going to be interested in the behind the scenes and how people got there. And when I think about that, I think how cool all that is and how important it is, because you're bringing together a lot of different skills when you're making a game. You're working with a lot of different people, right? Like and you have your large scale games, you have your small scale ones, you have like people or really small teams doing it, and I think there's something to be said about all it. If you're looking at gaming as a whole, the way it is, if you're working on a game at this point in time, right, you're dealing with thousands of people. You have a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of logistics. There's a lot of programming and development. There's a lot to consider, right? You're considering sound design, you're considering your visuals, you're programming this, you're programming that, you're making sure everything functions, right? You're considering the story and how that plays out, how long this game could be, what benefits someone might get through DLC, and there's some interesting stuff to consider when you're talking about DLC, because some people I feel will get it out to you and it's like, hey, yeah, this is an extra part of the game that's awesome. But for some people, it's kind of like finishing a game. And it's interesting to consider all those things. And when you're buying a game, you have to be considering what you're purchasing too. And we can get to that. But back to like the development, you have all things that I mentioned, and when you're considering your logistics, you also have to consider, your marketing, your budget, your target audience, and what system you're running this on. Because you could be dealing with this console, that console, a PC, phone. There's so many different things to explore, and you know what? There's math in all of that, and that's really cool. Like so in addition to my math and gaming series that I have, I also have like a series of shorts that kind of goes with that, where I do like meta breakdowns about different things in gaming, some of the things that I just mentioned. And I think that's really cool because there's so much to explore, and there's so much to consider when you are the gamer, right? Because you're not only are you doing a lot of math, you're making some pretty cool life decisions in the process, I think. And let me explain. Because see, here's the thing: when you're buying a game, right? You have your own budget for how much you're spending on this or that. Any given day, month, or year, week too. I don't know why I skipped that one, but you have a certain budget you might want to adhere to. You're buying a game. You want to me, do your research. Because see, here's the thing: games are expensive. I enjoy the hobby, but yeah, it is expensive. So when you're buying a game, you want to make sure you get your money's worth. And I feel like doing your due diligence will really help you out in the end. And then once you get that game, um, if you decide that it is worth it, because I feel like there's a difference between a game that is $60 but lasts like 6 hours and a $60 game that lasts hundreds. I've seen both. But depending on who you are and what you want out of the experience, it may vary because you could have like 6 very solid hours, in which case maybe that's worth it to you. I still think it wouldn't be, but it might be to an individual, and that's fine. You could have a game that's hundreds of hours, but it could be empty, you know, could be boring, which you don't want. And I feel like you don't get that too much, especially like with JRPGs. Like even some of the ones out there are really effective at what they do, and you can find yourself having fun and getting really immersed. That being said, when it comes to immersion, video games give you an opportunity to not only worry about your budget money wise, but your budget time wise. There are only so many hours in a day, and it is real easy to get lost in some video games. So it gives you an opportunity to grow as a person and also situate yourself in our current world. And here's the thing. I think about that like in a general way, but um, there's some like wiggle room where you still have to consider the time and money you're putting into things. But if you make video games your profession, which is an option, like actually like playing games is a profession, then that changes things a bit. You still have to consider things because there's only so many hours in a day. But if those hours are contributing to your job, then you might be giving yourself more license. My whole point, though, is that everyone has a different situation to consider, and video games give you so much to uh, consider and explore, both when you're playing a game, and also like more behind the scenes, right? Because like when you're actually in the game world, there's a lot to consider. There's a lot to navigate, and again, there's math and all that, and it's not a bad thing. And the same can be said when you're actually thinking about things on a more meta level when you're playing games. And then there's the whole buying games, you know, and there's all the stuff like behind making games. And I think that's all pretty amazing to me. And earlier I talked, I think I talked about it, but I'm pretty sure. But video games can also provide unique emotional experiences. And they can be these amazing ways to tell stories. Video games provide an incredible amount of interactivity, and they could be great for teaching lessons. They could also be great for showing you more about another culture or several cultures. And with video games itself, it has bred culture. And I think that's amazing. I think that's impressive. Video games are an amazing medium, and I am so glad they exist. And I would like to share with you in these next parts my personal experiences with games and gaming. And I've talked a little bit about some of these things in other videos, but I have so many, and I want to talk about things in the context of this video. So here we go. When I think about my experiences with gaming, gaming has been part of my life more often than it has not been. So I'm 34 at the time of recording, and I have been playing games for almost 30 years. Think about that, right? That's an incredible amount of time, I feel. That's most of my life. I grew up on games. I started playing when I was 6, Sonic the Hedgehog, and for the Sega Genesis. And here's the thing about that game, and I couldn't fully comprehend all of the things that I was taking away when playing that game. But in addition to it just being fun, which to me is a big point with video games, um, in addition to it being fun, I had to practice timing when I'm going through the levels, right? Like you're playing like Sonic on that base level, like going back to the original Sonic the Hedgehog, you are going through each level, and you're trying to get there before the time is out. You're collecting rings so that you can protect your life, and collect enough, you get more lives, and you might have a boss at the end of certain levels. And so when I was a kid, I was just having fun and trying to survive and get through the game, right? And I didn't realize that this was helping with my timing. This was helping with how fast I was thinking about things, right? Because you have your controller, you're making these quick decisions really quickly. It's like, oh, I'm going, and I gotta notice this one thing over there, and I gotta jump, right? Or I gotta avoid this, I gotta avoid that, and you're making these quick, quick decisions. I don't know what that was, but my whole thing is like you're making those quick snap decisions. There we go. You're making those decisions, and it really helps with improving your reaction time and just how you think about these sort of situations where you have so much going on and you have to react quickly. So Sonic was good for that. It was good like for practicing timing on different things, and it was good for like goal setting. You wanted to get to that level, and you might want to beat your own records. And even if you didn't recognize that, that might have been the case. And for me, yeah, I wanted to go fast. I wanted to see if I could beat this and beat that, and sometimes, yeah, just survive. And as you play different games, you employ different strategies. Like, I used to go over to my cousin's house, and different family members. We would all like play different games, and if we were playing a fighting game, there's so much to consider there too, right? Because like I said, there's a lot of math in gaming, and there's a lot of math, especially in fighting games. And so when you're playing fighting games, you have so much to consider, right? Because you want to have that idea about your health, you want to have that idea about your opponent's health, and how much damage you're dishing, and how you're linking combos. So you're doing a lot of quick math in your head. You're paying attention to the situation. There's so much going on the screen because you have your display and you have your health, you have your opponent's health, and you have that environment. You're just paying attention to all of that, and you might not even realize that you're doing that, and you're doing that quickly, but you are. And you're practicing your timing. You're practicing reading an opponent, and reading a situation. And I think that's impressive. And so when I was just playing really basic games where they didn't have complicated stories, they were just mostly gameplay. There was so much to gain from them, right? And then as we came along, things evolved, things changed. And not only did you have gameplay, which was amazing and taught you so much, but you also had stories to consider. Stories that were being able to be told on a much grander scale as we went on. And that sticks with you. Gameplay sticks with you, story sticks with you, music sticks with you. It all sticks with you. And I know I sound like a broken record with the math thing, but seriously, math isn't all that, and that should like delight you, not horrify you. But that being said, and I talked about some of the my favorite games before, but I definitely want to recap some of them. Some of my like really memorable experiences with gaming. Like I really enjoy the Metal Gear series. It is one of my favorite series of all time. When I was 15, I was going through a lot. I started thinking about the world in a very, very different way. I started becoming more cynical, more nihilistic. I was depressed, and I didn't realize that at the time. I didn't know how to deal with that. And while Metal Gear Solid didn't fix that, it helped. Because when I played that game, not only was that the first game where I saw like a serious story like really unfold right before you, where it was cinematic and you're going from point A to point B and moving it along in a really cool way. But it wasn't just that, it was the characters. It was how they thought, how they acted, how they interacted with each other. And a lot of the characters in the Metal Gear Solid series are fairly nihilistic. And I think that's interesting. And I remember like one of the big lines in that game that stuck with me. It's I have no past, no future, no ultimate goal. You live in the moment, the here and now. And that's kind of where I was. I didn't know where my future was headed. I had an idea of where I wanted to hit it, but like I questioned the point of everything. I thought hey, we all die, so what is the point of everything? And it was cool to see characters in that game grapple with that same thing, but still find a purpose to make their own purpose. And that's ultimately what I had to do. And I didn't realize that at the time. But I already had that ingrained in me to some level. I like learning. I like spreading that knowledge. And I like spreading the knowledge that I gained. And that's been a big thing for me. That's always has been, but that's been shaped in some more deliberate ways as I've gone on. I had to decide what I really want because honestly, yeah, we are all going to die. That's a thing, and it sucks. And unfortunately, we can't change that. But while we're here, we could make this world a better place. We know more than ever before. We are more connected than ever before. And while people have their differences, we can choose to connect with each other. Whether we do or don't, it's a completely different story, right? In any case, I enjoyed the story of Metal Gear Solid. I enjoyed the music. I enjoyed the atmosphere. I enjoyed the characters. It came into my life at just the right time. And like I said, while it didn't help solve my problems, it was really nice to be able to relate to someone, even if it was a character in a game. Because I didn't talk about, all this sort of stuff back then. So it was a profoundly important game to me. Still is. And that to me says something because when you're gaming, you are interacting, you're moving the story along. You are viewing things through the character's eyes, sure, but you're viewing these things as well. Your character has a reaction, but so do you. And seeing it all come together is an amazing experience, especially if you can relate to a story or relate to a character. That's important. That's pivotal. That's art. That's life. That's video games. And that's amazing to me. And as I've gone on, that sort of experience may have changed here or there. I might have connected for different reasons to this game or that game, but that connection hasn't faded. And I think about some of the games that have really stuck with me over the years. Several Final Fantasy games, too many to count. Um, the Legend of Dragoon. Um, I think about my three favorite games, which are really cool, and I think about Devil May Cry. And I want to get to those three favorite games. I want to talk about Devil May Cry first, and then kind of work my way up to my top one. So Devil May Cry was an interesting experience because um, it really like pushes you to be better, right? Like it's hard. It will kick you. It will kick you hard, but it doesn't say, "Oh, dude, you suck." It says, "Oh, hey, you player, you, yes, you. You didn't win, but you could." And you could win in a stylish way. You could be doing this combo and that combo. You could get good. And that's really cool to me. And I think one of the things that doesn't get talked about with Devil May Cry too much is like in addition to the characters being awesome, in addition to the gameplay being awesome, in addition to the music being awesome in that series, so is the story. And I don't think he gets enough credit for that. Because I feel like when you're looking at all of the Devil May Cry games, it to me is largely about family and how people deal with trauma and how that shapes them, why they do what they do. And I don't feel like that gets discussed enough. And then, that's in a video game where the objective is to largely beat the crap out of people in a stylish way while doing as many combos as you can. And I think that's cool. And then I think about my three top games, which have all actually been fairly recent, which I didn't think was possible because, my favorite series are the Metal Gear series, the Devil May Cry series, and Final Fantasy is right up there with them. And it oscillates between which games in those series are my favorite. But there are three games that have like pretty much come across in these last 4 years or so that really dug themselves in there and like worked their way up. Near Automata is my number one game, and I want to talk about that. And number two, Horizon Zero Dawn. I want to talk about that too. And Control is the third. They all snuck up in there and just became instant favorites. If we start with Control, I think it's pretty cool because it kind of like it found a way to be weird and creative. It found a way to like kind of bring you back to that. Because one of the things that I do find in a lot of like major games out there is like, yeah, they can still be fun, they can still be cool, but they don't take enough chances. They don't get enough, they don't get weird enough, right? Video games is a unique medium, and you can do so many cool things. You can do so many crazy things, And so when I think of a game like Control, you're just having fun. You're dealing with like extra dimensions and crazy creatures and psychic powers, and it's a blast. And I enjoyed the story as well as the gameplay, and the music was pretty rad at points, you know. And then I think about a game like Horizon Zero Dawn, and that game haunts me with its awesomeness. It snuck right up in there, and it had a very very amazing story, a mystery that unfolded in a pretty unique way to me. It used different mediums within the game. Think about that, right? Because like you're playing a game, and in that game, you know, there are texts, there are videos, there's audio material to listen to, like you know, different recordings, and all of that is used to uncover a story. And since it's an open world game and you're doing different things and going to different missions, you could sometimes uncover things in different ways, right? So there's some linear parts, there's some non-linear parts, and it all kind of gets smushed together in a way that makes sense, and it's brilliant. And not only is it beautiful, not only is it fun, but it tells a very, very pivotal story. And there's a big lesson that I feel like everyone in this world can stand to benefit from. And I'm not going to spoil it here, but it's an amazing game. And then I think about Nier Automata, where it's just, oh my god, it's fun. It's a Square Enix game that was like developed by Platinum Games. So the story, amazing. The music, amazing. The combat, amazing. It was a non-stop thrill ride that kept you guessing, that got deeply philosophical, that was just brilliant in every way. And to me, to talk to you like this about games, I hope that's an indication of how powerful they are, how important they are. They can affect us just like anything else. And they're not going anywhere. They are here to stay. Gaming is important. Gaming is amazing. Video games is important. Video games are amazing. And if you're a gamer, I hope that you've been having an absolute blast with this video, and I hope you have an absolute blast while you're gaming. And if you haven't gamed, but somehow you still watch this video, I hope you try. Whether you're playing on a cell phone, a PC, or a console, try yourself a game. Have some fun. Learn something new from a unique perspective. No matter how you cut it, though. New, old, keep on gaming. Professor Prime out.